Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Colin Parks of Ghosts of Atlantis to talk about their debut record, 3624, coming out March 26 on Black Lion Records. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time today.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
I know you guys are keeping a little bit of a secrecy around the title of the record. There's some hints within the album itself. Can you shed any light whatsoever, or is this something better left unsaid?
It's kind of like an Easter egg, really. We wanted people to kind of get a think on it and try and think what it could be. We have had one person actually in an interview this week get very, 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 very so close to the answer, and they actually asked me, and I was like, I want to tell you, but I can't, not yet. So yeah, it's got to do with sort of whatever I say is going to give it away so much.
It's one of those things that, you know, it's like you're trying to tell your friend a little bit about a movie that you just saw, but anything you say about the plot, it ruins the whole thing. Yeah.
It's like, have you ever seen Shutter Island?
Yeah.
It's like, it's really hard to explain that film to someone because they're watching and go, it's a bit slow. I don't really know. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it.
It has a little bit of that. When did Ghosts of Atlantis came to life? Like when the idea of this band start to brew?
The idea of Ghosts of Atlantis came just years ago, like maybe 3 years ago. Me, Dex from Conflict Within, the singer Pip from obviously this band, another guy local to us called Stu Bridges, who's in a hardcore band called To The Nines. We had an idea, and Gav, another friend called Gav Engineering, who actually was doing the drums in Ghosts of Atlantis when the album first started, and he's actually done some of the drums on the album. We started that a long time ago, but I then joined, I think I was just come back off one of the tours with Lacuna Coil with Devilment, and I wanted to do something a bit more local again because I started to branch out a bit and do stuff further afield. I wanted to kind of keep my feet planted like in the local scene because I've always loved the sort of the hunger that you get like when you're sort of fighting for your place, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So we were looking at doing it then. So I guess realistically, it was about 3 years ago, and then we just built the concepts up really of the lore and the whole sort of mythology, and trying to blend actual factual writings and documentations with kind of our own fantasy of Atlantis, and that's kind of how it kind of came to fruition over time, really. So
the way you look at the band as it is right now, I mean, this is a debut record, but you guys have a lot of experience amongst all of you. Do you see this somewhat as a super group, or just a really good group of talented friends that decided to put something together?
Yeah, probably the latter. I mean, the bass player Al, I've known Al for maybe 15 years, and the drummer Rob, I've known Rob for probably 13 years, and we used to both play in a band called Rebirth back in Essex in the UK, and we were very, very, very heavily influenced by Children of Bodom, like massively. If you can ever find that online somewhere, you'll hear it. It's really, really like Norther. It's that kind of vibe. So we obviously knew each other then, and as time went on, we did I went to university, did some bits and pieces, and then I met Pip and I met Dex and stuff, and then we did TCW. And Rob also transitioned into TCW from Rebirth. I'd stayed friends with Al. He'd been gigging on the scene for the last sort of 15 years in covers bands and a few original bands. And when I came back from doing the Hard Rock Hell show with Devilment, it was all very apparent that things were going to slow down quite considerably for that band, because Cradle of Filth were really riding a wave of success again, which they rightly should, and they're doing really well with that now, which wouldn't leave a lot of time for a band with another singer that shares in a band that's like a legacy band now. It's a big band, and that made it hard. So that's how it started, and the best thing I could do really was just bring the people with me that I was in the band with before I joined Devilment. So it was a pretty natural transition to get all the boys back, really, and just like I say, lock myself away in the studio and say, be ready in a year, because I'm going to try and create something which is a bit unique and different, and see what all my sort of experience and stuff I've learned along the way has taught me, and try and do it as best I can, really. And yeah, that's where we are now, together again.
You said that the idea for the band started 3 years ago, but considering the theme of the record, considering because I don't consider this necessarily a concept album, but it's definitely there's a theme to the album itself. Obviously, the theme then also permeates into the band's name. How do you start building this? Did the idea and the lyrics and the music came and then the band's name, or did the band, like, it's like the chicken and the egg kind of thing?
Yeah, well, the Ghosts of Atlantis name actually, I think, was either started by Dex, who's the guitarist, or possibly our friend Stu, or is someone in our crew of musicians that we were friends and that. And at the time, we were all playing sort of much more metalcore stuff, you know, more like Chimera, Killswitchy vibes and stuff like that. And like I said, as I started to learn my trade more with Devilment, I started to pick up on more how to make the music a product, as in not in terms of trying to sell something, but in terms of how to make it strong image, strong music, and the trick was to try and pull it all together and make it something different, because it's so hard to make anything different right now, because everything's just been almost done. And if you take too much of a step sideways, a lot of bands really suffer. So it was kind of a balancing process, I guess, really.
Yeah, it's hard to find that balance. It feels like you always have to give something away in order to get something back. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, totally. I mean, sort of a lot of the stuff we're really lucky, and we're really proud of the fact that the sort of feedback to it has been really, really good. Like, I'm really taken back by how supportive and kind people have been about it and stuff, you know. And that's been really, really cool.
Let me just say this to you, because I haven't talked to you about how I feel about the album yet, and you're saying about the feedback. I just want to say this. I know we're early into the year, but this is one of the best debut albums of this year.
Oh, thanks, man. That's awesome.
Like,
that is awesome.
I know you guys have a lot of talent and you have experience, but this album is really strong across all the elements. It doesn't matter if you break down lyrics, soundscape, structure. It's a well-balanced, well-oiled machine, this debut record of yours.
No, I appreciate it, man. One of the things I was really, really militant on was we were looking at the track titles, the track numbers. We were originally shooting for 10. But as we went along and the COVID stuff started to come through, we kind of got to a stage where we had more tracks to put on the album, but they hadn't had time to develop as much as the other 8. And the singer Pips, I sort of said, look, I'm a bit concerned about pushing an album for a debut, which has only got 8 tracks on it. And he just said, I'll just say straight to you, mate, Master of Puppets. And I went, yeah, fair enough. That's a pretty good album that has 8 tracks. But I wanted to try and get it so that when people got it into their hands, I didn't want any filler. I didn't want any track that someone can go, oh, fast forward that one. It's all right. It's not brilliant. It's okay. It's good. I wanted them all to be like, to tell a story, to be solid, and to all conceptualize and come together as one thing, but not be like a whole concept album. If that makes sense. So that was tricky, but I think we got there.
I think you got that, because it's an album that works if you're listening to the individual songs, and it's an album that works if you sit down and you listen to the whole album from beginning to end. So it works on both spectrums. If you're consuming the record as sitting down, pressing play and enjoying it, you're good. But if you're consuming it on Spotify or something like that, you also don't really lose the appeal that each song has. So I think you guys found that fine balance between those two worlds.
Oh, that's good. That's good, because it's hard finding balances like that. I mean, and it's hard trying to carve a sound that's your own. And that's something that sort of a producer, Scott, as one of the things he sort of taught me. Probably not willing, like knowingly, but he did sort of by listening to him and sort of watching what he does and how he talks and stuff. And that's like, a good song is a good song, and a solid song is a good song. It doesn't matter what genre you're in, it doesn't matter what you play, how fast you play, what stuff you do. A good song is a good song, and without good songs, you're not going anywhere. at all.
I felt that one of the strong points of this record is the overall soundscape that the album has. You guys created this sound that it has a big sound. It fills in all the gaps. It's not like an album that has that you could feel like there's perhaps something missing here and there. No, the sound almost seems to grow with every single track. There's progression with it. A lot of that sound, was that driven by the theme of the record? Because the theme kind of plays itself into big sound, almost cinematic, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you're sort of tackling subjects like gods, mythology, wars, battles, and you can't have something that's going to be really thin sounding. It needs to be almost filmic, and that's something we've tried to do with everything within this band, is that every lyric video we put out, we work with our team really closely. We've got an incredibly talented bloke who we work with called Drake Mephisto, who's also the creative director of a band called The Immorte, the Red Opera, and he's got his own company called Red Opera Productions, and the stuff he does for lyric videos is just mind-blowingly awesome. We've worked together, and we're really good friends. We've worked together seriously closely, and when I say closely, I mean we're on the phone every day, 9 months. Like literally that much, and that's how much we wanted to make everything sort of big. It had to be massive. Like it couldn't be, yeah, it sounds all right, otherwise it just wouldn't carry the concept. There's too much responsibility on us with that whole mythology to just put out something that doesn't sound big, like as big as we can get it,
I know,
with all the constraints.
If you're talking about Atlantis, you have to go big. It's either go big or go home.
Yeah, totally.
It's such a huge topic, right? Like it's something that everybody's heard about. So it's kind of hard to like create something that's going to take a little bit of the impact that it has. And you said that you did some research for the lyrics, for the stories. You put some of your own input. How much, if you're looking at the lyrics of this record, how much is truth? How much is myth? How much is your own take on it?
It's like a complete hybrid. I mean, like there's things in a song called Trident, When the Tridents Fail, where there's actual teachings from Plato who spoke of the path of deceit of the Atlanteans, because they lived in a land which was, rich in minerals, and they grew very greedy. The gods were displeased. There's a lot of stuff like that, especially with Plato, especially. And then, of course, there is the fantasy elements of the actual Ghosts of Atlantis, which are basically sentient beings that time travel. Like they're like the guardians of realms, and Atlantis is one of the realms that they watch over, and they're trying to protect the people, but the people are too greedy. They're too bound by their lust for power to see, and they, and then basically I don't want to swear, but all shit hits the fan, and they're looking for the gods, and the Ghosts of Atlantis, and the Ghosts of Atlantis are saying, well, you've got to deal with the gods now. We've tried to help you. You've really pissed them off. So yeah,
you're on your own.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Although we twisted it a bit. I mean, we've took a few liberties with the storylines and put our own twist in it, like a song called Poseidon's Bow, where Poseidon kind of sides more with the humans against other gods and stuff. So it's interesting. And one of the things we were really, really sort of wanting to try and convey and get across was we didn't want the album just to be pigeonholed to, right, we're Ghosts of Atlantis, which means forevermore we've just got to do things about Atlantis. So in the second album, we're talking about shifting things up a bit more, incorporating the time travel, relating to how things are in modern day society, with the misinformation, with people worshipping technology, and we're going to smash it all together, probably mix the image up a bit more, make it a bit more jilted and neon-y and stuff, and just make it really, fat and cool. So
it's funny that you say that, because that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you. Are the rest of the records all going to be about Atlantis? Because it that would kind of limit your creativity. I mean, it would your creativity.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we got another thing we set out to is we did not want to have this band being a genre. We didn't want it to be black metal. We didn't want it to be melodeath. We didn't want it to be just symphonic. We didn't want it to be, thrash. We wanted it to be everything. And we tried to encompass so many different styles within this album that if we are to suddenly go to, say, album 2, and we want to just suddenly do something which is really heavily piano-led, with the right orchestration. I mean, we've on this album, there's even narration on it from James from Black Crown this year. He's actually features on the song When the Tridents Fell. He actually speaks about the gods and stuff on that. And we're big fans of cinema, film, cinematography. I'm a massive computer games fan, like huge gaming nerd. And that has, without question, come over into our sound. And we definitely are using those elements in the album from those other sort of areas of media.
When you look at this record, do you feel like there's within the overall experience of the album, within the overall sound, is there one element that's kind of the motor of the record, or is this an album that moves because all the pieces are in the right place, pushing it in the right direction?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess the solidity of just having everything sort of aggressive. We didn't want to make it too extreme. Because there's a lot of bands out there already doing a lot of extreme metal stuff. I don't know. I guess it's everything's come together with the orchestras, and then there's a lot of Arabic female vocals and stuff we've used in there. And we wanted to keep that kind of Arabic kind of feel running through the album, and that's probably not going to change. That is something I'm quite into in terms of listening to ethnic music. Like one of my favourite composers is Craig Armstrong, who's a pianist who does a lot of movie stuff. And yeah, so I guess it's everything together that kind of makes it as it is, rather than one singular thing.
Having said that, I really feel like the guitars and the drums together on this album, they really become the backbone of how this album is constructed. I honestly love how these two elements are working. This is what I felt. I felt like you guys created an album where you could hear every single element in its own lane. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the drums and guitars together created this really robust experience. Like they were the solid base that allowed the record then to have all these other different elements pulling you in slightly different directions.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that, because I did music at university as well, one of the things that I sort of was looking into when I was studying was Mozart said, when you're composing a piece of music, you've done a good job when you can present the listener a piece of music, and they can take 3 or 4 different parts happening at the same time, and they can latch on to different things but still not get confused. And I mean, for instance, like Dream Theater will do loads of stuff, and I'll love it, and then all of a sudden I'll be so overwhelmed with it. I'm like, what's happening? Like,
yeah. It's a lot to process.
Pardon?
It's a lot of things to process at the same time.
Yeah, it is. And if you can kind of find that blend where there's all different things happening, like strings, pianos, all different vocals, but keep, like you said, the solidity of the drums and the guitar impactive and constant, solid, the listener can kind of listen to different things. Doesn't have to always listen to the singing. It could be different things that's happening in the background. Or we also try to make it so the heavy vocals and the clean vocals played off each other. We didn't want to make the clean vocals too heavy, because as soon as you start going a more shouty, aggressive clean, it then takes away from the heavy clean, and it doesn't work as well. We wanted to have quite a dark and light balance going on there, really.
The vocal aspect of this album to me is one of the highlights of the record. Like I can look at other elements and say, well, as a fan, I would like you guys to have done this maybe a little bit different, or that a little bit different. When it comes to the vocals, I was like, wow, this is spot on. Like you guys were like a relay team. You know what I mean? Like he would give you the baton, you pick up the baton, and you pass on like smooth every track, really getting the most out of both approaches. But if I have to be 100% honest, the clean vocals, a delight. Cool. Just the atmosphere that they add to the whole way the album is put together, to the storytelling of the album. I think this record without the clean vocals, it's not the same album. It just doesn't have that extra life that it needs in order for the story to kind of jump at you.
Yeah, exactly. I think you need to have that hook of that, the singy thing, because at the end of the day, the hook's what people latch onto, and that's what music is memorable passages that get stuck in your head. Like, Slayer, that's the hook, and as soon as it's in, it's never going. That is it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to make things hooky vocally if there's no melody there, unless you're just working with big beat downs or intricate patterns and stuff. And yeah, I mean, me and the last singer Phil, we were in a band called The Conflict Within, which was like a sort of an Essexy metalcore band, really. I guess like Killswitch Engage and Chimera, that kind of vibe. So we had like 12 years of experience bouncing off each other in that band. So the chemistry was there. We knew exactly how it worked. But obviously with this album, because I hadn't seen them for a while and I've been off doing other stuff, there was a new dynamic which we had to learn, which was me as producer and Phil as screaming vocals. So we had to spend some time crafting patterns and getting him used to the way that I write some of the lyrics. I mean, Phil also wrote quite a few lyrics as well, but we have quite different approaches. I'm quite into poetry and stuff, and that's probably from having worked with Dan from Cradle and Deverman. But I've always been to poetry anyway, but that showed me how you can use it within the metal genre, effectively. There was a little bit of time there where we had to kind of get the vocals and his vocals together, but it didn't take long. I mean, we're talking like half an hour because we'd say.
But you must be extremely satisfied with the final result, because I feel like the vocal dynamic on this record is just off the charts. I mean, it doesn't even seem like there's two different singers. It seems like it's just one person doing both, because the way one flows into the other, the way they come in within the tracks, nobody's overstepping over each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, that's come from years of trial and error in the practice rooms and stages and stuff where we played across England and stuff with our other bands. And, like I said, we were all like family in this band. We're all really good friends. And especially when I write music, I write to help them as well. And I want them to do as best as they can. And there's never been an ego from anyone in this band ever. And that is something that's really, really nice to be around, when people just really just want to help each other unconditionally all the time. So that finding that balance it just fell into place. Like the chemistry is on point, and that makes such a difference.
And now with every record, there's always difficulties, there's always challenges. In your view, what was the most challenging aspect of putting this whole record together?
The most challenging part was probably at first dealing with lineup changes, because we had a different person in doing some vocals right at the very beginning. Things didn't work out there, and then we had obviously Gavin on drums, and he had to leave because he had other stuff he needed to do and stuff, and that's fine. So that was a challenge, but mainly the biggest challenge for me was learning how to orchestrate, learning how to go back to playing the piano, which I hadn't played for a long time. Orchestrate the orchestras, get everything ready, write all the stuff, then obviously get everyone into the studio here at my place in and around lockdown periods, in and around COVID break-in. That was really tough. Like there was points where I was just not going to bed. I was like, I can't sleep, because if I sleep, I'm gonna miss something I need to do. And it was getting so brutal. Like it took a lot from me, but that was tough. And now we've got there. I'm so happy that we finally got there. So that was the challenge, really, was the COVID and getting everything done was just monumental.
As you look at the date of release, as you look at that, it's in the horizon, the day is coming, like finally your baby is gonna be out there and people are gonna be able to experience. What expectations do you have, considering all the restrictions and everything that's happening in this world? Is there something that you would like to see from this album?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've always been very vocal about is we're definitely a band who like to, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but we do genuinely care about people as people. I mean, I'm a carer, for instance. My job is a care worker, so I look after people who are poorly and stuff, and COVID stuff as well. And one of the things we will certainly want to do is, if we can get our music to people that helps them through anything they're struggling with, that is numero uno, as in thing that definitely means most to me. I mean, when I was in Devon, I used to get sort of mails from people who would tell me some sort of real personal stuff, and they'd say how much the music has helped them. And to me, that is massive. Like, that is a massive thing to do for someone. So if the album's able to take off and get us some good tours and some festival slots, great, awesome. If it's able to help people, that is awesome. That's perfect. So they're the two things, I guess, really.
Well, that's a great way of looking at it. Really, and I think this is a time where more than ever, perhaps people are gravitating towards their favorite bands, towards their favorite music as an escape from the dark reality that we're currently living in. So I think this album would allow people to travel a little bit, just like the Ghosts of Atlantis.
Yeah, travel a lot.
It all goes full circle. It all goes full circle.
That's it, man.
Colin, thank you very much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you about this record. I really enjoyed the album. I like I said to you before, I really think that this is going to be one of the best debut albums of the year. It's just really well crafted, really well put together, really engaging, fun to listen to, great melodies, great hooks. I love it.
Oh, thank you, man. That means so much. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for your time. All the best. Stay safe and well out there, and good luck with the release on March 26th on Black Lion Records. You have it on your head. I'm sure nobody's going to miss it.
Yeah. Free bit of promo for them. Maybe they'll send me a free CD as well.
I would expect them to send you at least a vinyl.
Yeah, damn right.
Thank you very much for your time. Take care.
Cool, man. Take care, mate. Bye.